All right, I know what some of you may be thinking, what's up with the nerdy glasses? And actually, they're not just glasses, they're a camera because I gotta write some stuff on this board and I'm just gonna use what comes from the camera from here so that way you can see what's on the board better. So I'm gonna get right into this. The title on this video is Where Exactly is Hell? And I'm sure that's a decent amount of clickbait, but you're definitely gonna get something out of learning about what I'm gonna talk about right now, which is very important. All right, so let's get into this. So, you know, what this conversation is really about is, first and foremost, just realizing this experience that we're having on the planet right now. This is a gift. And no matter how much you're experiencing, even if you have the liberty to look at this video today, basically you have to think about how many people are in the world that even have the opportunities that you have. So oftentimes when you want more and you want more, you can get disappointed. And I did a recording about this. When you start getting disappointed, it puts you in a position to not be grateful for what you have already. And this is an important thing. So the first thing about all of this is that, well, there's kind of a disclaimer here with what I'm going to talk about today. And it's because it's not going to benefit you to look at something, is it good or is it bad? Because once you do that, if you find yourself engaging in it, or if you find yourself have engaged in it before, you're immediately saying to yourself, okay, well, I'm bad. I'm a bad person. And when you start doing that, you know, on a continuous basis, you demoralize yourself. So this is what duality really gets you into. So what this is about is this about learning some real knowledge, identifying some characters or some themes, some archetypes. And then what that's going to allow us to do is going to allow us to perfect some knowledge and allow us to transcend. And what we're going to talk about transcending today is we're going to talk about transcending the lower part of the cone, or transcending the fleshly part of our consciousness, the process of transcendence. But before we can do that, we have to identify, you know, what is this flesh? And what you see with the life forms of flesh, they all contain what we will call carbon, right? They're carbon-based life forms. What you'll see here, many know that as the cube, right? So this is the carbon structure that the physical body is built on. So despite what a lot of people think about geometry and what they think about worlds and planets and all that, there's some very factual knowledge about all this if you look into nature. And so the reason why you have these archetypical planets such as Venus and Saturn is because what they are is their correspondences to geometric structures. So when you understand those geometric structures, you can basically put an entire body together. And just how our body is put together, we find this shape present in Saturn. This is Saturn's pole. And then there's another shape which is concave. So it's basically a concave pentagram. So in this sense, all the sides are straight, right? Or curved, excuse me. So when you go into the structure of the metaphysical body, what you find is that the metaphysical body takes on each of these geometric shapes and has several layers of these geometric shapes. And the characteristics of these geometric shapes, the being inherits. And that's what we call astrology. That's what we call astronomy, even the natal charts. That's the connections with us and the celestial bodies, which is us. And so the next thing that we're going to get into here is we're going to talk about this concept really briefly of the diamond body, right? And then we get this word diamond, D-A-M-O-N-D, right? And this actually comes from the word daemon, right? And this actually is where we get our word demon. So obviously a person wouldn't associate diamonds on their finger, you know, pretty diamonds, expensive stuff, with demons, right? But it also lets you see how the misconceptions come when we start to see words and we're triggered by words like, oh my goodness, demons, dark ones, evil ones. And in this world that you're living in, it's actually all the knowledge is guarded by these kind of thought forms, these evils, darkness, I hate it. Because what that does is that that makes you push it away, and then you never get the knowledge. And I'm going to explain why that's the case. So this diamond body is actually a product of this sphere, right? Now they're calling that Saturn, but there are many planets using this same type of geometry, but we'll use that term for now. Even this Y here is also known as the nail in Hebrew. And so this connection okay, with this diamond and daemon is when you take these two diamonds, or to the triangles in a diamond, and you interlace them, you get this, right? And then in here, you still get that same hexagonal cube, all right? So I just wanted to explain that very briefly, because that's the first part of this, is just to realize the connection. So the same thing goes on with the pentagram, that Venus is tracing out, you know, there's a huge correlation between pi and phi. You can look that up on the internet and see the connections yourself. But it's basically the spiral that nature chooses to build in. So when you observe the planet Venus in the sky, what you'll notice is the Venus is tracing out a concave, which means the lines are curved, pentagram in the sky. So we then have another planet, celestial body, whatever you want to call it, that has a huge correlation to how physical bodies are being built. So the interesting part about also this diamond body was this was also known to be more of the ethereal or spirit side of a person's consciousness. It was made out of an aether, or something of what a person would say is a ghost. So right away we have Saturn, and now we have ghosts, right? So you could see where this is going as far as interpretations. But what you have is you have then a connection of this diamond body with the phi-based body. And this is only 2 planets that I'm talking about. Imagine there's billions, there's a countless amount of celestial bodies or lights or frequencies out there, and we're all composed of all those frequencies. It's just what we choose to magnify, what's actually closer to us. All those different things affect, you know, our makeup and our being. But the interesting part is that, so when you're able to just connect something like this, just from a, let's say, a theoretical or metaphysical level, you also start to see, okay, well, this is multiple layers, and each of these layers are more or less a world that express certain kind of ideas and certain kind of traits. So I just want you to first understand that that's the layering of the body, and that's kind of how it works. Also, a lot of people have different interpretations of what I'm speaking about right now. And what I'm doing is I'm bringing this into, you know, we're going to go into the 22nd century soon, but we're bringing it into this century in the speak that we know, the language that we know, the terms that we recognize, because now all this is going to make sense when I show you that. So how the body is designed pretty much is like this. You know, it's like when we use this same structure as I was talking about before, the diamond bodies, right? So inside, let's say, there is this kind of structure. And the reason why this is important for you to know is because if I asked you, where is the center of your body, and you didn't know where your center was, then you wouldn't be able to use your body like a universe. You wouldn't have that thing on the map that says you are here. So first you want to put the aspect on what is the center of the body. And obviously for us, the center of the body is a human being, right? Go here. The center of our body is actually our navel. And the reason why we know that is that's basically like the equator of our body. They talk about in ancient times the navel of the universe, or the navel of the planet, and that many structures, let's say temples and holy places, were attempted to be created, emulated, and placed on the navel of the planet in order to be in balance and to interface with all there is. A big example of that is that the Kaaba is actually known to be on the navel. Now, what is the shape of the Kaaba? Okay, we got that cube out there again, just to show you the knowledge and how it connects. So the navel of the planet, let's say, or the navel or the center part of our body is here. Now, the purpose of this conversation today is to talk about how to transmute lower energies. Now, what you're seeing with this Saturn structure, they call this the, let's say, the square. This is the basic rudimentary structure of when you begin to build something. And that's why these demons or daemons are actually generally very deep within our consciousness, deep within the planet. Anytime they mention and they say, oh, they're underground, they're grotesque, and they have all this power and strength, you should be afraid of them. And what they're really saying is that these are the primordial sides of our consciousness, the building blocks, the foundations. And they are still very crude. They're brutes. They're strong, just like our wills and our passions. But they're very crude. They're not refined as what we gain in our higher nature and what in our higher being, right? But nevertheless, they are needed because they can make up the foundation that everything is growing on. And their density, meaning how slow they move and how, you know, impervious to light they may be, right? Actually accounts for why life is even developed here in the first place. Because if the planetary system was moving, let's say, you know, for hypothetical reasons, billions of miles an hour, spinning and rattling and shaking, how much could really actually grow here in the first place? Really nothing. It actually needs this structure to be quite still and firm and rooted. So the thing is with this diamond body then is that, let's say as a builder of these templates or these temples, right? Because this is just known as the temple, right? The body is known as the temple. And so the mystery is, of course, Solomon used demons or daemons or diamonds to build the temple. There were all these gems and jewels in the temple, but they were rough cut. You'll see this all in the mysteries and as you begin to dig deeper into this. And what's just being expressed is that's why the metaphysical body is very akin to crystals and a crystalline structure of light, these kind of things. Because when you're able to transmute your diamond or daemon and you're able to begin to cut it and give it facets, right? This is you sharpening yourself. Then all of a sudden this thing can shine very bright. So notice a rough cut diamond generally doesn't have any shine or glow to it. But once you start cutting it and you get the facets right, then it shines. Now, of course, this is what Rihanna's talking about when she's talking about shine bright like a diamond. And she's talking about shine bright like a demon. So what happens is that the connection with all this is that if a person doesn't realize that they have this as in their consciousness, even though it keeps popping up, they've seen it before, they've seen how they act out in certain situations, then they don't have any contact with who they are on an ancestral level, right? So they become disconnected. And we're going to talk about what that leads to, because it actually leads to the battlefield of Runha, where there's literally a person battling the demons inside themselves that they actually think are separate than them. And this battle continues forever because you're basically fighting yourself forever and you can't die. So you can only really learn how to transmute. So the interesting part is how the world is positioned then. Is the world is actually, and this is really, to me, if you start pushing out knowledge about the speeds and the tilts and the different things that have been put in place by when we calculate certain things with the system, which is called Ma'at or mathematics. If you start doing that and you throw away all those numbers and you think they have no value, then you're lost indeed. So there's a tilt that goes on with the earth. And that what's being said is that basically there's a tilt that goes on with the body that most people don't come out androgynous. Their spirit is androgynous, but they physically are generally genderized as one type of sex. And that is a big part of, as it's noted, is that slight imbalance in the body or in the field. We're now discovering what is actually causing that imbalance. What's causing you, instead of being here and thus being perpetual, to actually be running on this like a WAP that eventually starts slowing you down, and then you start arriving in what we would call lower frequencies, right? None of this good or none of this bad, just letting you know where you are. So what happens is that if you look at the world that we actually live in, the world that we live in is really based on flesh. This word is carne in Spanish or Latin. So this flesh that they're basically talking about is the physical body. It is actually this symbol right here. This symbol means flesh. It means fire. A burning fire, right? So this is actually the connections between these words and these symbols, because this is actually where you get all your, what you would call passions from, right? The wills and the passions and the desire to be something, right? And that is actually, it burns like a fire. That kind of passion, if anyone's ever had passion and drive, they notice that, we're getting a little bit off the map here, but they'll notice that it burns. Right? You know, you can't get what you need accomplished. There's even an anger, right? So let's look at these words and let's look at what's being said. Because what it's saying is that your passions, right, and your will and your drive, okay? So let's look at this body again. And so what's driving the body? This is the legs. It's like what's driving it, right? And then what's willing the body? It's like, you know, this kind of will that you're on, what's moving the body, and then that's driving you, and that's your passions. So a lot of this is all tied into what we would call the flesh, right, or the world of flesh. That's why they call it, and this may be a stretch for some people, but incarnation. incarnation. This means you're in the world of flesh. Okay? Now, nothing right or wrong about this, because the interesting thing is if you start to demonize this, literally, and oh, I knew it, I shouldn't be here, blah, blah, what happens is that you will miss her. I'm going to show you the key to some of these words. Miss, right? Miss, hello, miss. Her. Okay? What I'm talking about here is that when you realize what's really beyond all of this, when you develop passions even to drink water, there are places in what we call the spiritual plane, there is no water. So if you still have that desire for water, then you have to go through the whole process of weaning yourself off that desire. Now, if you want to sit down, well, there's nothing to sit on. There's no seats. So then you have to wean yourself off the desire to even sit. So what I'm telling you about is that what we're experiencing now is the planet, which is divine feminine. It should not be confused with just females running around. It's also female frogs, female donkeys, female cats. There's the divine feminine. When we're talking about the gift that she's given, again, even if you have the opportunity to watch this video, that's why I was saying that when you go to other countries and you see people that really have a difficult time, they don't actually have the leeway to actually be disappointed when someone has done something for them and then maybe they may not be doing anything for them anymore, or just all the head jobs of actually, we want more, we want more. They're very appreciative when you give them something because they don't have these expectations. When we're raised in these Western cultures where everything is a service and, we pay for something, we expect to get something back. What we miss is we miss the gratitude of the experience. We miss that every person in this matrix is a character in a grand drama and play. And they are playing their role to the T. They're playing it so well, you don't even realize that they're playing. And they don't even realize that they're playing. We're all into some grand vision that when we start to realize what's actually going on, that's when we really transcend into an entirely different level. But just remember, so if you're just one of those people that you're like, I want to leave here, I can't stand being here, because now you've gotten into the whole Western poison of the mindset of allowing you to give away your gift, then what happens is you start to see you'll miss her when you leave here. Because you won't have no more water. You won't have no more abundance. You won't have no more beauty. You won't have another sky. You won't have another clouds. To remain here, because there are places you can experience amazing things right here, right now. To remain here indefinitely is up to the planet to determine whether you've used all the gifts. And that's what I was saying. You have the daemon body. You have the diamond. You still got to rough it down. It's very powerful and strong, but you're going to have to train it. You have the flesh being that actually has the 5 senses that knows how to interact with the reality. And then you have much more geometry, dodecahedrons, and all these different geometries that you can keep experiencing in the higher worlds. But what are you doing right now? And this is the question, and this is where we're getting to the close. So the close of this is to realize then that what's happening in our world right now is because we've been hard-coded into flesh. That's why I said, be fruitful and multiply. Our greatest gift is that we can produce children. Like, there's no technology that we've invented to date that is more complex than what goes on when a person first starts distilling light, energy, food, different types of foods, emotions, all these things into their seed, whether it's an egg or it's the seed, right? When you're taking your body, and what I'm talking about is your body is going through a process, men and women, to where women produce an egg and man produce the seed. And that entire process is generated off of the stuff that we're pulling from reality. That's distilling life. And so right now, there are not any real devices that are capable of doing that and have that kind of magnitude or complexity. So because of that, we should again realize that it's the gift. But also, more importantly, we have to realize that the command is to multiply, right? To grow, to increase. So we learn that another big part of this realm is abundance, right? The realm's just growing so much stuff. It even has stuff being thrown away. We have so many children that, people are starting to try to figure out what are they going to do with their children. So what happens is that we have fertility, right? Now, the interesting thing is when you go into any of the ancient cultures, this symbol meant fertility. The moon, magnetism, all the different things that are associated with that symbol. This symbol also became synonymous with this symbol. Just horns, right? Like in the old days, they would call that the horn of plenty, okay? Also, they have words like horny, right? This means a person that wants to copulate, the horn, right? Horn of plenty. So what happens is that we're now in a reality that has taken this symbol and made it mean the devil. And simultaneously, what they've done is they've made us believe subconsciously that woman is the devil. Because you get the red dress, and then you get the whole connotation that sex is a sin. Sin is another name for the moon, right? And then so you get this programming that if you don't know what it means, what it starts to encourage you to do is actually hate your mother. Hate fertility, hate abundance. And this is how a person gets switched over to the system of death. I told you it was going to be a serious conversation. So what happens then is where this death actually is located, as they know it, is actually here. Let's say this is your navel. The life and the death is here. Because remember, when they say death, anytime a person says a word, you can say the opposite to that word because they'll always exist together. There's nothing that exists without the opposites, even us. So the natural opposite to life is death. So the life and death component, which we will call the genitalia, right? Penis and vagina, is actually not located at the center of the body. It's slightly below. And this is why there's a tarot card that shows the devil, right? Which again is just a feminine fertility symbol as we know it. And then man and woman being chained to that fertility symbol, meaning that is what is keeping them there. So now when we look back into reality, we have to admit that even now, especially if you're not even handsome, this is the first level. So the transmutation of this. We'll talk about appearance versus character. Right? It's a very important thing. Appearance versus character. Yeah, I made it on the board. Okay. So appearance, right now, a person really looks at you from the eye from here. Right? They're looking at you from here because the first time they see you, they say, is he attractive to me? Or is she attractive to me? So right away when you send that signal, you actually send it from there. So this is how we're also using that eye or that filter from the lower world to see things. That's the first thing that goes on. Again, this is not bad. This is not good. Just peep the knowledge. So what happens is that now when that energy is sent, what it's saying is, how do they appear to me based on my taste and my liking? And so that's right away what we're limited to with a person. When we do that, we've already limited to ourselves to that. We ate that, we received that, now we reap that, now we will sow that, right? But there's a transcendence of this because a lot of people that may even not be, let's say, perfectly phi-based in appearance start to realize that it's actually your character. And this is why you see people that, you know, from what the world has judged now as what beautiful is, are not really in that category, but they have millions of people following them. Why? Character. So it shows us that the transmutation of appearance is character. You know, they should be up here. So, right? Just to keep it clean in the mind. Transmutation of appearance is character. Start thinking about your external body and that person's external body. You start thinking about their character and where they're really at, and you know, how they thinking, and so that's also how you keep yourself out of certain problems. How many times have you been in trouble because you looked at the appearance, you hooked up with someone or did something, bought something, and then realized in the inside that it didn't have any character or the character was corrupt, right? So there's a transmutation. There's a simple example of a trait that's transmuted. So now what we're going to talk about is how to transmute this trait here. The rewards of transmuting what we would call sexual energy. Understanding how to build sexual energy, but also realizing that your body is an alchemical chamber that must manage that sexual energy hermetically, and then also give that sexual energy, which is life, the ability to transmute itself in order for you to go to another level. Because see, down here, what's being shown is that you will still be mastered by any entity that is here. So let me draw this out again as the diamond body. Okay, bam, bam. And now we have the center here. And if this is where the genitalia are, you know, sometimes triangle up, sometimes triangle down, then anything that's even here can actually master over you. This is actually a system of mastery. If you're not in the center, then there's always some kind of duel going on, even in what we would perceive as the higher worlds. You personally as a being have to learn how to neutralize energies. That is your power, that's your ability, that's your gift. The vessel in itself is actually diametrically opposed, lower world, upper world. Each of them need each other. If this foundation isn't here, this comes crashing down. This wouldn't even have been here if this didn't get here first, because this is where the seed germ is coming from. But now the thing is where are you going? Can you go from here to here in your perception in the world? Because you see now it's hamburgers and booties, basically. That's the B's. The reason why it's B is because A is a auroch in the ancient language. B is a bovid. And this is why we have these terms in the English language, A, B, as our first letters, because when you take A and you turn it upside down, you get this symbol. Again, you get this symbol, which is the horns. And then this was the symbol of cattle, because cattle were, in this tense, not only a correlation to the matriarch, but also a correlation to the money then, because all cattle were, and more cattle you had, the more wives you had, the more children you could have, the more farms you would have. And then the auroch became the bovid, because this is also known as mobile wealth. And both of these are cow type beings. And the reason why even now you see all this beef eating is because it's a direct metaphysical blow at the divine feminine to eat the actual, our own mother, to eat the milk, and to eat, you see what I mean? So just understand psychologically, when they do this kind of thing, when they bring death to fertility, they're simultaneously bringing death to your prosperity, okay? And how you transmute that, because you know, now that you realize what's going on, if you're here, you can move your sexual energy from here to here by not, when seeing someone, you can also choose to go from here to here. There's experiences that we're all going to have. See, it's not, when we say, oh, you know, it's going to be on another level, even if those levels are here, there's experiences. We're having experiences now. And because of those experiences, our soul is continuously growing. So based on what you want to do then, if you want to play around down here, then it's going to keep taking you through the schools of what goes on down here. If you decide you want to go on up here, it's going to take you through the schools of what goes on up here. And it's likewise, if you want to be here, if you decide that you want to be in that zone of neutrality, right? So, but this is how you at least get there. But the other thing is, because people are experiencing a lot of oppression in this reality, it's because something's on top of them. And that's when you get this kind of symbol where you get an eye here, not saying the original symbol, but now the reason why this symbol is used now heavily with the destroyers, because they're inverting it, is they're saying, hey, we're here. We're not here yet, because if we were here, we wouldn't be doing this to you. We wouldn't even be present to be tormenting you to give you lessons. We would have already entered the neutral zone. We're right there in that eye, and that eye now symbolically where it would actually be, according to the navel, right below the navel, is actually the sexual center. And because they rule that sexual center, they know much more about it. That's why they got Tantra, right? There's light Tantra and there's dark Tantra. But the Tantra basically allows a person to become lord over this fertility realm. So, once again, to how to do that, because Tantra is everything. Tantra is communication. Tantra is relationship. We're doing that right now. When you see people, it's almost like you walk up to someone and you just look right at their boobs, or you look right at their abs, or you look, instead of allowing your mind to go in that direction, stay in your middle chakras. You can even go into your higher chakras, because many people need experiences from their higher chakras. They're too heavy on experiences from down here, and they need this to balance out, right? So go into your higher consciousness and start thinking, what can me and this person do together on a level of our relationship? Like, how do we connect from an information level? Do they search and do they seek their highest state of consciousness at all times? So when you start focusing on that versus these things down here, then you're deciding what kind of energy you're going to get back from that. So I wanted to keep this short as possible. There's, of course, lots more on this. I wanted to say wholeness and balanced vibration. Look and see if there's anything that I missed. No, I didn't. Remember, this is jam-packed with information. If you like what you see, subscribe. I'm going to be doing a lot more on this board, trying to get in here every single day to keep expanding people with practical knowledge of what's going on in the dimension. But just believe for sure, if it hasn't come to you yet, about what you're here for and what exactly happened, you're going to hear some stuff that's new. And I encourage you, instead of going into war with yourself, because that's all you'll be doing. If you get off here and you're disappointed about something I said, remember, I don't know about that personally. It'll be you fighting with yourself and seeing yourself in negative energy. I encourage you to go investigate it, strip it down, go to the geometry, go to the symbolism, go through history and see what that meant to people that came and experienced life way before this culture that we're dealing with right now and what they said about it. And in truth, that's what'll find us our connection. And there it is. So, wholeness.